Okay, it is going to take nothing short of Christ himself to come save us at this point. The Antichrist has, of course, built his cities all over the world, everywhere, which is going to be apparently something that needs to be cleaned up. Um, like a dog would go leave his mess and leave it for someone else. That's kind of what the Antichrist is going to do. Um, leave it for Jesus Christ to clean up, because it says in the Bible that the rust of the rich man's spoils and whatnot gained in this life will basically he'll sit in his rust or whatever, or have to sit in the spoil that he's created. Well, we kind of are doing that now, to some extent, because there's all these toxins we're putting in the environment, like mercury, arsenic, what do you call that stuff? Mm, Asbestos, stuff like that. We're putting these things in the environment, and it's going to take nothing short of miracles to clean it up, because these things are ending up in our landfills, which is poisoning things, and it's poisoning the water too. China is a good example of that. How their water, some of their water runs red and different things, because of the poisons that are being dropped in our water. Now, if a nuclear war happens, that's also going to cause a great catastrophe that's going to need to be cleaned up afterward. But the cities kind of like tell on the rich people in a way, because they live in it, and they live in their own toxicity, is kind of what's going on. So I'm lucky right now. Where I live is not too in the country, but it's not in the city either. Um, so it's kind of like we get some toxins that do get released, like from light bulbs and asbestos and different things like that, but we're not like baking in our own toxicity. Um, so we're not like sitting here like globs of slime stuck to our own toxicity. And in some places they kind of are. How they get like big rats and big roaches and all these things that are being genetically changed, I believe, too, to be bigger than they normally are. Um, I believe that that's some kind of genetic poisoning or something that's done this to these creatures. I don't think they would be that big otherwise. Um, but they find a lot to live off of in that kind of environment. There's a lot of waste, and rats and whatnot, of course, multiply in waste. You can see that in every hoarder's house there ever was. The more you hoard stuff, it's ridiculous to hoard stuff, because you get rats and you get roaches and everything else, spiders, different unwelcome creatures. But the Antichrist is doing this, and it says in the Bible that he is the one building all these cities and whatnot. And these cities and the rest of the cities are what's supposed to kind of like crumble back down on them, because they never should have done this. But it's weird, because it says in the Bible too that the Antichrist, his ways practiced and prospered. So it does indicate that he prospers, and we are in a prosperous nation, which is why I think that the Antichrist is secretly over America more than a lot of other countries. He might be over Japan too, I don't know. But it seems to me like certain countries are prospering more than other countries. Like China is definitely not prospering, but they're still able to get like modern day things. So even though they may not be prospering in relation to us, they're still prospering, because of the fact that they make all these items in China. You find freezers in China, you find things in China too. And with as high of a population as they have, I would have to say, yeah, they're not that poor. But the problem is that you don't get the money to go from the top to the bottom the way that it should, the way that it does more so in America, until they become communist and changed all that. But they're trying to change it in America. You can see it, but they're not able to change it in America. So far, they haven't been able to, because there've been too much common sense and too many votes in the right areas, I guess, to prevent them from changing things too much. And part of them changing things too is when they change things, they're changing things for the green or for society to pick up without the rust and all these things. They're trying to change us to be more sustainable. Um, and so even though it's misguided in the fact it's communist, basically, um, it's not misguided in the fact that they're trying to help the environment too. But you can only help the environment as long as you can help your country. The country's got to come first, because if we break down as a country because of financial or whatever other reasons, we can't fix those other problems, the ecosystem and whatnot. So the thing is, they should be after us staying together as a country. If it needs some oil or gasoline or whatever to keep us together financially as a country, to keep inflation from going to skyrocket, it is a good idea because it'll save lives in the long run. It'll save people that couldn't pay for things. So I think it's a good idea to use oil and gas and stuff like that to an extent. And I think that they go all one way or all the other way, which is wrong both ways. But there's got to be like a happy compromise where we can keep America as a nation and still meet some of those meet some of the green goals too. But I think that they're not recognizing the Antichrist is over this stuff. So some of the green stuff is against his city building or whatever. So basically, you're telling the Antichrist no when you pick some green stuff up, but when you start picking too much green stuff up, you end up completely liberal, to where you just want to do green stuff and you don't want the wall and you don't want anything, built that could be leading to the end. So the Bible says these cities are definitely going to go away, but they're going to see, these cities are supposed to go into like perpetual ruin, which I think could happen with, an atomic bomb or different things like that. It could send a city to become more deserty and more just unlivable, uninhabitable. Of course, some of the animals will probably still live there, as the Bible says, but won't be a place where men can live. And they're supposed to turn into wasteland, is what the Bible says. So there's clearly, it's like a cave. It's like after you mined it all out, you still got wasteland there, but you don't have many of the minerals, so no one wants to go there. Well, that's kind of what we're doing to the world. We're mining everything out, and we're creating, and once we're mining everything out, we're creating buildings and places that we technically don't need, but see, they don't do a lot of stuff that we would need. They don't consider the average person. They consider the trillions of dollars in debt we are, but they don't consider us. They just consider us as taxpayers, and we're supposed to, make everything better for their plans. But they don't really consider us as far as people who, need food, need places to stay or whatnot, or the inflation wouldn't be so high. So that's kind of what's going on. The Antichrist is here. He's creating these buildings all over the world, and it says in the Bible he creates buildings all over the world. But that's what he's doing. That's kind of what he's up to. Biden, as ridiculous as he sounds with his green agenda, because they're spending money to do all this stuff too. And to get a green agenda, what do you really have to do besides not build more? And his plan is build back better, so that doesn't sound like not building more to me. It sounds like he's trying to do something that he doesn't know what he's trying to do. But he is trying, apparently. he's going to all of his engagements, even though he's tried not to make too many engagements near the wall. But the wall is not, to me, the wall is not as big of a deal as the inflation. I mean, that's a major mess that's going on. Um, but it's one of the things that they're considering because they have terrorists coming through the wall too. They don't just have, if they just had regular people coming through the wall, I don't think they would worry as much as, you know, the Navy and the Marines and whatnot all have to worry about if there's terrorists coming in the country. And that's some more problems we have because we want to think that people are terrorists because they don't get what they need, but they're not. They're terrorists just because. Some of these people are just naturally mean, and they're just terrorists because they are. There's nothing causing it. They're not hungry. They're not maltreated. None of these things. You know, you can treat them like royalty or treat them like an American. Treat them like Americans or whatever. They're still going to do terroristic things because they want to and because they've been taught to also. And I do think in the other countries that's going on a lot where they're teaching them to do these types of things. So, but anyway, the Antichrist is here. He's the one that's putting out these marks, these chips, these RFID chips, these tattoos, whatever they are. Probably the vaccine, who knows? Who really knows on that? But anyway, that's going to leave us in like a cesspool of builded items. And I think they're building far too fast and with far too little forethought. But the things that they're building are helping us. I'm not going to say they're not, because if I didn't have a refrigerator, you know, I wouldn't be able to store meat or frozen food or anything like that to eat. Yeah, if I didn't have some of these technological items, an oven, a fridge, a place to live, an apartment, I wouldn't be healthy and happy and all those things. So, but anyway, they're going through a lot of stuff where they're building all these cities, and Jesus Christ clearly says that's wrong. It's wrong what they're doing. But, at the same time, Jesus Christ also indicates that, well, it says in the Bible the word exploit. I don't think we're exploiting the Antichrist necessarily by buying his stuff, because without it, we'd be exploiting ourselves. We wouldn't be able to eat or do anything because the transport, like the food comes from transportation, mostly. When you get your bananas and your apples and all these different things, they're from different places. So your animals, yeah. So your apples come from Washington. Basically sometimes your apples come from Washington, your bananas come from Guatemala or, Honduras or wherever. But, they're getting these foods and things for us by transportation. So the Antichrist is developing us in such a way that it will help us. But, he's also trying to trap us into an eternity of hellfire. So if you know those two things, you know what to do to survive, but you also know that he's trying to trap you into hellfire. And at a certain point, he will get more aggressive on that. But right now, he hasn't gotten too aggressive on it. I think he's trying to hide it. A lot of the Swiss people or whatever know that they're becoming... that it's possible for them to take the mark of the beast. They're starting to note that some people are taking the mark of the beast. And so is the Antichrist. And he's probably not going to get very violent as long as people are slowly but surely taking the mark of the beast, which of course winds them up in hell forever. He thinks it's funny. But